Welcome to the Authorpreneur podcast, where we talk to authors and business owners about how they are using books to market themselves and their businesses. I'm your host, Chris Green, and in each episode of the Authorpreneur podcast, we talk to a successful author and business owner to see exactly how they are using their books and author status to grow their businesses and serve their customers. We'll talk about what's working, the benefits of becoming a published author, and we may even come up with some creative new marketing strategies. In this episode of the Authorpreneur podcast, I talk with Richard Weylman, the author of The Power of Why and his newest book, 100 Ways to Acquire and Keep Clients for Life. Richard is a Hall of Fame keynote speaker, Customer Experience Hall of Fame inductee, and a multiple best-selling author. Orphaned at the age of 6, Richard overcame that obstacle and has developed several successful businesses. As a result, he is passionate about helping others understand today's marketplace and aims to help others elevate their business performance. Considered one of the leading authorities on marketing innovation and understanding the customer perspective, Chris Forbes, Vice Chairman of Forbes Media, refers to Richard's work simply as brilliant. In this episode, Richard and I discuss using books as part of a business, the power of personalization, and creating memorable experiences. If you're interested in learning how to position yourself as a thought leader and how Richard uses his books as integral parts for his business, then you are going to really enjoy this episode. All right, so Richard, thanks so much for joining us here on the Authorpreneur podcast. It's going to be fun because you probably identify as an entrepreneur from way back. I actually looked up your book. I think you're off. I think it is 1994 when you wrote your first book.
Yeah, the first one, yeah.
They're all still available on Amazon. You can go find your first book, your second book, your upcoming book, which apparently is doing really well. You say it's got a ton of pre-orders where the publisher is like, whoa, this is kind of getting out of hand, which is a good problem to have. It's a new problem, but it's a good problem to have.
Yeah. They just ordered a second printing, and the book isn't out till March 12th, so that's gratifying. Just help as many people as we can.
Well, I love the idea of helping people through a book because it's probably one of the best ways that you can scale and get your information out into as many people's hands as possible. Would you say that you wrote your book kind of in self-defense as a way to like, look, everybody's asking me all these questions. I'm just going to write them all down, and you guys can buy the book? Or is there a different strategy in writing?
Yeah, I think, well, twofold. Interesting way to put it in defense. I started my consulting firm. I was had the privilege of being involved in a lot of different businesses, and people were calling me to speak about how to market to people and build a marketing brand, et cetera. So I thought, well, okay. So I began to speak, and I was getting several hundred requests a year. It was pretty wild. So very quickly, what I decided to do at that point was I would sit down and write and just put all my thoughts on paper. And that's why I wrote Opening Closed Doors, Keys to Reaching Hard to Reach People. And that book just took off. But it wasn't so much that it was so that I would speak less. I realized I only have, your greatest currency is time. So how am I going to reach more people with the message? And that book really became a catalyst, not only for expanding the business, which of course is, although my hope was just to reach more people, but that really prompted a lot of other things. I produced 124 video educational programs with workbooks that about 7,000 people take those courses online every month. So, but that was an outgrowth of, first, let me see how many people I can get this information to, because time is my currency. And as a result of that, of course, then it really got busy.
I watched one of your videos where I got the vibe. Tell me if I got the vibe right from this video. It was a video where you had a pamphlet on stage. You were showing people, you're like, this is all you need. Just do this. Here's the steps. I'm giving it to you. And you like, even almost throw them in the stage or in the stands.
Yeah.
Of like, it's almost like a frustration of like, when information is free and you're handing it to them on a silver platter, do you find that because it's either free or inexpensive that they don't take it serious? They're like, oh, how good can this book be? Or how good can this pamphlet be? And you're like, it's that, just do what's on the pamphlet. And almost like how do you get past that frustration of saying, look, you know what to do, but why aren't you doing it kind of thing?
Well, it's interesting. I think there's two groups. There might be three, but I'll say two. And the first group is they're always looking to learn. And they go to conferences, they read a book. What I've learned from those people is they are totally frustrated with messaging and books that give them a galaxy view of a situation. People today want steps. Step one, adults love steps. I mean, you can't lose weight, you can't get married, a lot of things can't happen until you take a step. And the frustration I realized very early on in my speaking and consulting is people want prescriptive tactics. They just don't want a lot of you ought to this and you ought to that, and this would be good if you did that, because people would agree with that, but they can't move forward on it if they don't understand, quote, the steps. Then you have another group, to your point, that are pretty complacent. You could give them, well, take your example. You could give them a book, you could give them a pamphlet, you could give them anything, and they're like, yeah, well, this is good, but I think I'm okay. And I'll give you a classic example. I was speaking down in Key West, Florida, and for a financial group, and more of a workshop setting. We were talking about branding, and we worked with them on some branding issues. And one of the things that I said was, when you are engaging with people, make sure that you speak from their perspective. As an example, just saying something like kind regards, warm regards. And this one guy said, well, I wouldn't say that. It makes me sound like I'm weak. Well, okay, so we know that guy's not going to make the cut. So there is that group out there. But I think it's a smaller group. My personal view, Chris, having spoken all over the world and all these keynotes, over 4,000 of them, workshops, I leave today. I'll be on the road all the rest of this week, speaking at 4 different groups. And nobody calls me to come speak. They're coming in because they want to solve a problem. But you can't solve a problem if I said to you, Chris, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this. If you don't get prescriptive tactics, it's a nice to have that information, but you can't get there from here. That's been my experience. And that's one of the reasons I write.
Would you say that the people who have trouble taking the advice would mean admitting that they were wrong or admitting that they've been doing things the wrong way, and that resistance is just too much to overcome? Like, no, if I do what Richard says, that means I have to admit that for the past 10 years, our marketing department has been doing things suboptimally. Maybe not wrong, but not optimally. And people don't want to take that ego hit, so they say, "No, Richard's stuff. No, I'm not going to change."
It's an interesting view. I think there is a segment of society, and I will tell you where it is. A lot, occasionally, very occasionally, less and less, we run into, let's say, a training department that doesn't want to adapt or adopt something new because that's not the way we do it here. And as a result, their whole organization suffers because you and I both know the dynamics of the marketplace are changing all the time.
Change isn't bad.
Yeah, no, and they need to adjust and adopt and to make that adjustment. There are individuals that, well, as an example, I'm very fortunate. We have a very large coaching division, and we work in lots of different industries. And one of the things that we always do is a pre-call. And we ask, they're not tough questions, but are you coachable questions? Would you consider making an improvement in this area if we could give you a couple? Well, yeah, but we're in pretty, so we don't take those people. Because if they're not coachable, you can't get there from here. And, Nick Saban had a great comment in an interview many years ago when he said, no, they said, you always recruit the best players. He said, no, I recruit the people that are most coachable. And that's a great point. So to your point, that's exactly the point you just made. Are you coachable? Are you willing to make some adjustments? Not that you got to change everything, but if there is something you could improve upon, that would be helpful. That would be very open to that idea. There's 3 things. You got to be open to new ideas. You got to be willing to make some changes. And you got to be willing to raise your hand and ask for help. So if you're open to new ideas, you're willing to make some changes and raise your hand, you win.
It really is simpler than people make it out to be. I think I would make the case that a lot of human psychology gets in people's way.
Yeah.
To where we're not willing to admit things. And it's really easy to say, oh, I'm coachable. But then when you're asked to change something, oh, I'm not actually, it sounds easy to be coachable, but coachable means admitting you were doing something wrong, being open to trying a different way, doing something even if you don't have full confidence in it, doing something even if you don't know the exact results that are going to come from it, but you do it anyway because you looked at somebody else as an expert, you trust their opinion. There's harder things than people think. I joke sometimes with my wife. when she sees me do something like, oh, you now you do that. It's like, I tell her I'm trainable, right? Like, I don't say coachable. I say trainable, almost like a husband and wife sense. Like, look, you can train me to do all kinds of things. Like a dog, you can train me.
Right.
And yes, I want to be trainable. I want to learn something new. I want to, help in ways that I didn't know before. And it kind of puts back in perspective. Like, I am trainable. Please train me. If there are things you want me to do that I am fully capable of doing, let me know, because I'll be happy to do that. If it makes you happy, sure, I'll do some new things.
That's good.
I like some of your videos where you're talking about some of these little things. It probably goes back, to your original book of like little things that you can do to really stand out. Like the donut example, where they're sending you a text of your first donut purchase kind of thing, which like really nobody kind of does. But because nobody does it, it stands out, right? Like, and even just the way of when prospects say no, of following up with them in an appropriate, intentional way. Small things where, I mean, you could probably fill a book with these small things, like 100 different things. Uh, then how hard do you find it to be like to get people to pay attention and do these things? Like, it's small, so do it. Like, why? What's the thing? What's the thing that gets in people's way of doing some of these things?
Well, I will say this, that as I mentioned early on, most people want to get better at what they do, whatever that is. And if you give people bite-sized ideas or steps or tactics, incrementally they can implement them. What I think I've learned is that all too often people, here's 7 or 8 things you need to be working on. Well, good luck with that. What I know is just from experience that if I tell you, Chris, you're doing a really good job, you're a great podcaster, I'm really happy to be working with you. Now, you asked me to evaluate you. So here are 3 things I'd encourage you to do that I think will really help you engage with your audience. And I'm here for you if you need me. So we can look at this in a month and you can tell me your feedback. Well, if I give you 2 or 3 things, you can do that. That's a fairly easy Now, I'm not saying you need to, if I give you something global, it's like, well, how would I do that? It's bite-sized chunks. So that's why I wrote this current book, 100 Proven Ways to Acquire and Keep Clients for Life, because to your point, if somebody says no, what do? You should send them a thank you note for saying no. Disappointed we're unable to do business now. I look forward, not I'm sorry. I look forward to working with you in the future. Always talk about the future. And then say, feel welcome. Don't say feel free. Feel welcome to call. Be gracious. I just spoke in Illinois, and the CEO reached out to me just before the pandemic and wanted me to come and speak. And we couldn't work it out schedule-wise. And then he reached out again after the pandemic. We couldn't. So this year we finally got it worked out. And he reached out to me. We got the schedule. But when I got there and he got ready to introduce me, he stood on stage and he said, I want to read this to everybody about our speaker. And he read the note. Disappointed we're unable to put together a date now. I look forward to working with you and speaking for your group in the future. Always feel welcome to call. He read that. He said, that's why he's here today. Now, I sent him that note almost 5 years ago. So what's the point? The point is it does several things. Number one, it tells people that you intend to work with them. You want to work with them. Secondly, it allows them to save face to make the phone call to you if they say, well, we're going in a different direction, or, there's 100 reasons why people don't do things. But in terms of, buying a car, doing a project, whatever, send them a thank you note for saying no. You mentioned 50 Donuts. In Sarasota, Florida, there's a donut shop right next to the police station named 50 Donuts. Arrestingly good donuts. Great tagline. All right. Now, they've expanded now. They have 7 stores on the west coast of Florida. I've talked to the owner. And I said, Christine, I have bought my first donut there August 4th, 2019. And I'm not a big donut guy, but I appreciate you staying in touch with me. She said, oh, yes, August 4th, you get a text from me, right? Sure do. Congratulations, another year as a successful, loyal patron. Now, here's the reality. I buy a car. I invest in a house. I think of all the things that we buy or do. Why doesn't that salesperson, that company, send them the same thing? This is a donut company. I mean, let's be clear here, Chris. We're talking about a $5 donut, okay? And they can text me every August 4th, and yet I make an investment. I buy a house. I buy a car. I take my clothes to the dry cleaner the first time. We can't put that in a database and say, congratulations on a successful year as a client. Relationships drive revenue. All the rest of it is pretty much commoditized at this point.
Well, I think people get hung up if they feel it's not scalable, and they'll use that as an excuse. They'll be like, "Oh, well, I can't text everybody." It's like, how many houses did you sell? Like,
Yeah.
you sold so many houses that you can't possibly, like, even the donut shop, we're selling hundreds of donuts every day. They're
God, yeah.
still finding a way, to do it. And you can automate some things. And
Oh, with AI today, and what the problem is, most people have a CRM, customer relationship manager. They need to have a customer experience manager. In other words, set up fields. When was the first purchase? That's a field set. You can then automate and send it out. Chewy's a good example. I was speaking in Nashville in November. Mind boggling. I put this in my new book, 100 Proven Ways to Acquire and Keep Clients for Life. It's in November. There was, I don't know, 1,200 ballroom full, 1,000, 1,200 people. All right. So I was talking about elevating the client experience to stand apart from the competition from the main stage. And about 20 minutes in, I said, as an illustration, immediately, I said, I saw on LinkedIn this morning, this woman had posted about her cat. And she was doing business with Chewy. Everybody knows, yes, everybody, big company, big company. But what happened? Well, she posted this morning that she got an order from Chewy for cat food, standing order every month for her cat food. And it came in November, and she called the rep at Chewy and said, I got to return this order. My cat has died. The rep at Chewy said, no way. And of course, you can see the audience is like, ooh. And then I said, what did the Chewy rep say? We want you to donate it to the local shelter, and we'll give you 100% credit on the bill. And the whole audience goes, ooh, really cool. I said, but that's only part of the story. In case you don't think you have scale, 3 days later, that woman posted right in her story on LinkedIn. 3 days later, she got a bouquet of flowers and a condolence card from the rep at Chewy. Chris, as soon as I said that, this woman stood up in the middle of the audience of 1,000 or 1,200 people and screamed, that was my cat.
wow.
I was like blown away. I was like, and she said, yes, I posted it on LinkedIn, held up her phone. I said, how? She said, yeah, I got over 1,000 likes. I just stopped right there. I said, all right, now, ladies and gentlemen, number one, Chewy's a big company. I would say this idea that it's not scalable is a false narrative. Would you agree? Yes. I said, and what does this tell us about Chewy? And this whole ballroom, 1,000, whatever, 1,200 people start chanting, we're switching to Chewy. We're switching to Chewy. Point made.
I love stories like that. I think marketers get in their own way because you could be a cynical marketer and look at that and be like, oh, Chewy just did that to make themselves look good. And it's like, yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
Like sure, they made themselves look good. But they're also looking at it as like someone who has a cat is probably going to get another cat, right? So like as a lifetime value of a customer, telling them, please don't worry about returning the cat food. Please just donate it or whatever you want to do with it. We'll give you the credit for it. We will take the expense of whatever it takes to send flowers and a card and all these things from a brand. And there are a lot of people talking about the power of brands and like how important it is to have a brand, how people are associating themselves with brands, and people are loyal to brands. Like cat food is a commodity, right? Like most things that people sell are commodities, but we're choosing to buy Nikes or we're choosing to buy from Chewy because we have some kind of emotional connection with them.
Right.
And I mean, hopefully I'm assuming they have a whole team of people who are almost just scouring LinkedIn, looking for people to go in and surprise and delight, not as like a Darth Vader marketer, like going in with bad intentions, but saying like, where are our customers and where can we help them? Where can we serve them? The company has given us a budget. Let's max it out and just do our jobs and just let the chips fall. And all of a sudden, how the chips fall, you got a room full of people. You just happen to tell a story, a room full of people saying, we're switching to Chewy. And if that didn't come from that, it's okay. They still just did the right thing, took care of their customers without overthinking it. And I don't know, maybe a lot of marketers just get in their own way of thinking like, how is this going to be perceived? Or
Well, the challenge is, Chris, that a lot of, and I don't want to encompass everybody here, but what people, I think, in marketing, even in merchandising, for that matter, to your point, everything is pretty much commoditized. But the real issue is that salespeople, marketers, companies, CEOs, they're in love with their product, their platform, their process, their plan, their whatever they're selling. They're in love with it. The challenge today is that the consumer is in love with the experience and the outcome. So it's a complete it's a complete dichotomy. There's this massive value gap. You got the company over here talking about the product, the platform, the procedures, the attributes, the features, et cetera. And you got the consumer over here saying, okay, but I'm in love with the outcome I'm going to get, the advantage it's going to give me, and I want to have a great experience. So when I wrote this current book, I spent a lot of time interviewing people. And what we discovered was when we asked people, what's an elevated experience? We found out that most of the stuff that's being put out in the marketplace, it's being client centric on their journey. Well, number one, I don't want a client on any journey. I want them to get here and stay. I mean, who doesn't want clients for life? Sorry, who doesn't want clients for life? Okay, but I think the bigger picture is that when we ask them, what do you mean by an elevated experience? Their definition is completely different than the average so-called person out there telling everybody what an elevated. Here's what they want. They want personalization and humanization. They want you to personalize and humanize. They want to feel like they're in the right place with the right firm for the right reason. They're not interested in the transaction. What they're interested in is building a relationship. And there's four things that, we talk to hundreds of people in our consulting business and branding exercises and all different, from NFL people, the NFL fans for an NFL team we did a lot of work for on client experience, fan experience, to fast food restaurants, et cetera. We asked, what are you really looking for? How would you define it? Well, we want to personalize and humanize. But what does that mean? Four things. They want somebody to be thoughtful. They want somebody that cares enough to find out what they really want and need. Third, they want somebody to be kind, to go the extra step. And fourth, to be empathetic. That's it. Now, we assume, of course, that you have competency. It's a foundational point. But in the end, what we as sales marketers, CEOs, business owners, entrepreneurs, and even authors, we don't need to be writing at people. We need to be writing to people, like we're writing a letter to them. That's not because that's a style I've learned, that if you tell people what to do, that's good. But people aren't interested in being told what to do unless they can see that you really care enough to explain it, that you're kind enough to give them an illustration, if you're thoughtful enough to make a reference, and if you're empathetic to understand it's not what they're doing wrong, but rather that which it is that they could improve upon if they so choose.
I think everything you're saying is going to scare a lot of marketers because it's the not scalable stuff. But it's kind of an old way of thinking, like transactionally and all these, older, kind of business ways of doing things versus the new ways where not only does the customer want something different, you're able to deliver it if you just stop and take a little bit of time, put in a little bit of effort. And even that little bit of effort, if like, oh, how do we scale that little bit of effort? And I could see it shutting people down to where like, I don't know how to do that. Well, you're going to have to figure it out because some companies are figuring it out.
Right.
And there are ways to, I don't want to say automate, but, be efficient at finding out what people want. I try to write my books from an empathetic point of view, say, look, if you're struggling with this, I understand it's because of this, and this works because of this. I always try to explain the why. I find that people really respond well to that instead of like, here's what something is. Well, here's what something is, and here's why it matters. Here's why it's important that you understand this. Here's why if you don't understand this, the rest of these things aren't going to make a lot of sense. And people can tell, okay, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. He's actually gone through this. He's gone through something that I want to go through. So I'm going to, kind of cast my lot with this guy and actually read his book or watch his videos, consume his content, like hire their business as a consultant, whatever it might be. It's kind of fun to go through this change of business. And I'm sure you could write another book about the change of business from 90s until today, just the way things are being done, like a pre-internet age to a fully social media 5G age. Kids today, they're not going to know what you're talking about. They're like, no way it used to be like that. But experience from the past, quite valuable. I would make the case in today to understand why, customers and consumers are their tastes and expectations have changed.
Well, if you think even about TikTok today, and you think about the average user or Instagram, people ask me all the time, how can I be more effective? Well, it's the wrong question. The question is, what are people responding to? And people go, oh, they're responding to influencers. Well, there's lots of different types of influencer. It just doesn't have to be a celebrity. Every single market has people that are known for their, shall we say, the thoroughness and the effectiveness of their opinion and their direction. So if you're going to be successful on social media today, you need to, again, the same thing. You have to demonstrate, here's what this would do for you. I mean, when you think, people ask me, why is TikTok so hot? Because people are demonstrating how to dance, how to sing. They're showing us something. Well, if you have a product line, there's no reason you can't show us something that helps us to understand how this solves my problem. Same with if you go on Instagram. Today, people, I'm on Instagram and, I get tons of people commenting back because when I do like a minute and a half video, it's not, you ought to be doing this. It's like, hey, you want to know how to sign your emails more effectively? Well, every kid, every adult wants to know that if they're sending an email. Don't use sincerely yours. People don't like it. They think you're an institution, and I know you're not. And secondly, don't put best because they're trying to figure out is it best for you or best for me. You know what the best ones are? The best ones are warm regards and kind regards. Send me a message. And I get tons of, oh my God, I changed it and it was amazing. And another one I put out was, everybody wants to follow up. Don't follow up. Tell them you've identified next steps. They'll engage with you. Another example is don't tell people to feel free to reach out. What does that mean? Feel free. Well, thank you. How about feel welcome to reach out? Game changer. I had an email today from a woman in Cyprus who she listened to a podcast I did. She said the results have been remarkable. People say, well, thank you for being so kind by changing a word. Come on, Chris.
Words matter.
Resistant change. We're talking about a word here.
There's so many like little things that people don't realize can make a big difference. I was waiting for you to say touch base because I know you don't like touch base either.
Well, I did that one time. I called the CEO many years ago and I said, I'm just calling to touch base. He said, what? I said, I'm just calling to touch base. He said, really? He said, well, I'm on home plate and you're out. He hung up on me.
That makes it for a great Instagram video.
Again, good point. It's the little thing. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I have a small hack. It won't work for everybody. But what I try to put in my emails at the end, kind of get a little bit of an extra attention, is I was fortunate enough to get facebook.com/Chris. Now I've got chrisgreen.com. I'm a little vain on domains and social media handles. So I'm thrilled to have facebook.com/Chris, whether someone is big on Facebook or not. But I put that in there. And many, many times people have responded when I didn't know if they were going to respond. And some with the specific thing of like, how did you get that? And it just opens the door because it's a little bit of a flex to be like, hey, I'm just letting you know, but it's the right place to put it, right? I don't go up to somebody and be like, hey, you know what? I have facebook.com/Chris because like nobody cares. Like, what are you talking about? But putting at the end of your email, Chris Green, chrisgreen.com, facebook.com/Chris, it gets attention. And it doesn't get attention in a bad way. And it's in the right place where I'm not shoving it in somebody's face.
Right.
So if somebody has that, or if you have like a great domain that you're using, I would put that in there because I feel we're getting to the age where more and more people are understanding the value of a good domain. So that it won't work for everybody, but if you have a nice, short, branded domain name that you can put in there, kind of as a reminder, I think those are things you could put in there. There are other small things you can put there in your email to show a little bit of like, oh, okay, this guy's been around long enough to know what he's talking about. But you're right, it's the little things, and it's not that hard. But I can speak personally to say, look, if I got 100 people, I only have time to like do something nice for 10 of them. Sometimes I can get in my own way and be like, well, if I can't do it for all of them, then I'm not going to do it. Right. It's like, I guess, or do it for the 10 because you only have time for that. Like it's understandable. I like to run contests, and instead of just having one winner, I just pick like 20 winners. Be like, hey, you could all win. Like I don't care. Like it's not a problem. I can give more than one prize away. And it makes people's day. And I would make the case that I'd love to talk more about specifically on books, to where the ways that like when you publish, are all your books traditionally published, or did you self-publish any of them?
Oh no, everything's traditionally.
Okay.
Well, other than my video and textbooks, which I produce specifically for our online university. But yeah,
right.
Opening Closed Doors, The Power of Why Breaking Out in the Competitive Marketplace, and this next one, which will be out very soon, 100 Proven Ways to Acquire and Keep Clients for Life. They're all, we'll call them traditional publishing houses, etc. Yeah. This last one was kind of a firefight. I had 10, that's incorrect, 7 publishers that wanted this book. So, which was,
How did you pick a winner? Did someone just do one of the little things that?
nope. Everybody kept bumping the advance up, and I said, it's not about the advance. It's speed to market. They're like, speed to market. Now, we can't guarantee speed to market. It's 12 to 18 months to get a hardcover out. Everybody knows that with the, regulations out of Washington now, et cetera. And then I had this Mango Publishing came to me and said, that was in September. They said, we'll come out March 24th. And actually, it's coming out March 12th. So,
Yeah.
and they've just gone into a second printing, and it's not even out yet. But the point is, I went with a traditional publisher. There's nothing wrong with self-publishing at all. There's a lot of people that do that. And because it's tough to get a publisher, I mean, my book proposal was 50 pages. So
it's almost a book in itself.
Yeah, I mean, you basically have to write a book about why they ought to publish the book. And, it gets to be a real adventure. But the most important thing is ask yourself why you're going to write and who you're writing for. In my case, I need a title. I like to have the title, then I write to the title, because the title to me is why you buy the book. In other words, you see the power of why breaking out in the competitive marketplace. I want to write about breaking out in the competitive marketplace. Now, this book, 100 Proven Ways, I couldn't come up with a title, but I was about half out of my mind, and I finally just said I'm going to write it. And I didn't get a title till the book was, in fact, I didn't get a title till after I wrote the book proposal and sent it out.
But did you already have the 100? So it was like, well, the 100, that kind of falls in line.
The subtitle was 100 Proven Ways. This is a brilliant point, by the way, I'm about to make from a marketer, a dear friend of mine. I sent out several title selections, like 4, and the subtitle was 100 Proven Ways to Acquire and Keep Clients for Life. And I just had, and these are all marketing friends of mine, I said, which one do you think speaks to the heart of the matter? And they all had opinions. But one guy came back to me and he said, Richard, everybody knows you for being specific and clear. And he said, what I would suggest, use the subtitle. Now, this was the great point. He said, never forget one thing you've always taught us, that clarity beats clever. And I went, yep, I forgot. So I changed it. We did away with all the other and sent it to the publisher. And I said, yeah, it's long, but yeah, we're going with it. And then they put a subtitle behind it anyway, The Proven Path to Business Success. But in any case.
No, it works. I mean, the cover looks great. The title is clear. Like, people will understand exactly what it is. I mean, it's almost like clarity over being clever. That could be your next book if you've already got plans for your, if you want to do it again.
Yeah.
Gonna take a break? Is this your last book, or is this just gonna take a little break?
I thought The Power of Why, it's in 7 languages or 8. I thought that was the last one, but this one got in my head, and I fight about it. I fight with myself. I fight with my faith. I fight with God. I'm like, I don't want to write another, because I know what it entails. But and I couldn't come up with a title, so I was mad, but I was waking up in the middle of the night. And finally, family said, you're down in the office at 2:30 in the morning making notes. You think maybe you ought to just go ahead and write this thing? So that's how it came. I spent 6 months fighting it. So it's
I think a lot of people, if you've never written a book, they don't understand what it's like. And I've heard this from so many different authors, and I've experienced myself. Like, when it's time to write a book, it's time to write a book, and you can't not think about it, and you can't not work on it. It obsesses you.
Exactly.
Not necessarily in an unhealthy way, but it can take away from family time or other things. So you got to kind of balance that. But when you've got a book that is like begging to come out, I don't know the best way to describe it. If someone's never written it, they're probably not going to identify with this. But it just, every spare minute is focused on the book. You're super happy when it's done, but it can be quite a challenge as you go through it.
Absolutely. I often say it's an affliction, but anyway.
Well, what I wanted to get to with the book is again, one of those like little things where you can surprise, delight, just make somebody's day for very, very low cost with a higher perceived value, which to me gets, as a marketer, I get a little bit excited about. You mean I can give a $20 book to somebody and it's only going to cost me $7? Okay, now I'm interested, because I can go give somebody a $20 book for $20 all day long. Like, that's already there. But wait a minute, now I'm able to give away 3 books for the same price it would have cost me to give away 1 book before, and it's my book, and I can personalize it, and I can make them feel really special. I can put a personalized inscription in the book, and it's just going to blow them away, and it's going to take me 15 seconds. To me, those are some of the things that may not be scalable, but they have so much leverage that go with them, to where somebody just is so thankful and honored to receive a book from somebody, especially personalized, physical product delivered to their door instead of something digital. And you're able to do that at a low cost. The marketer in me just gets excited about book marketing, whether it's physical product or the Kindle version, where you're able to get your book into people's hands, your information, your content into their hands at a very low price. And then that leads them back to your social media profiles, leads them back to your consulting, leads them back to your online courses. And it just becomes this kind of really enjoyable business where you're able to help people and share information. And then your business is growing on the back end, and you're like, this is great. All I have to do is help people, and my business grows. And now everybody wants me to come speak at their event. Like it's almost like what couldn't be better, except, maybe if you're on the road, 300 days a year, it might be a little much, but that's what some people want.
Yeah, I've been there, done that. So when the ROI came out, I did 187 dates that year.
In 1 year?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And did you give away books at those events, or?
We sold books sometimes, but usually what happens when I speak, the organizer will buy books for the entire audience. Unless I did the Pyramid Center in Memphis, that was 22,000. I did the Pepsi Center, that was 40,000. And so they just had book stands set up all around the building, and people could buy them. And then I signed for hours. I signed people by the 6 or 7 hours, I'd sit there and sign books. But the way I feel about it is that it's not about me, Chris. It's just about, it blesses me to see people want to get better. So whether they buy a book or given a book or all of that, it's just that experience of knowing that if there's one thing that I could share in that book, or one thing I could say to them when I'm signing it at an event, or one thing I say on the stage that helps them, then I'm grateful. That's just how it is.
Well, that's one of the things I like so much about books, and books are timeless. I mean, what was it, 1400s when the Gutenberg press, finally came out? To be able to put information, content, knowledge on paper, and then it exists and it continues to exist, and you can get it into people's hands. Like today, digitally, we can email things. We have Kindle and ebooks and all these different things, to where you can help somebody by writing it down one time and going about your day, and then they can find it, they can read it, and they can benefit. It's an amazing time to be alive, to be able to do these things. And I try to think back to times before, let alone books, times before writing, where everything was passed down orally. There was no, to be able to actually put stuff down and say, hey, everybody learned from this from 100 years ago. We don't have to make these same mistakes over and over again. And we just keep compounding on that, kind of as a human, species. For everybody who's published a book, everybody's a little piece of that, of, putting our information, our content out there with the intent of helping people. I love, the fact that you go to a huge event and you speak to 20,000 people, and then people line up to buy your books, I think is, have you ever thought of the law of reciprocity in that sense, where you went up and you just gave information? You're able to do it at scale because of technology and microphones and speakers and all these different things. And because you helped people or motivated them or gave them confidence or answered a question, whatever value they got from that,
right,
they're going to run to a booth in order to buy something from you, because they feel that reciprocity. He just gave to me, I want to give back to him. How can I do that? Oh, I can buy a copy of his book. Whether they actually read it or not, they want to buy something. And I think if people kind of understood that kind of aspect of human psychology, they could say, hey, I can actually grow a business by just giving my knowledge away. But you have to do it in a way that has that system of if you're not someone who has enough connections to get a traditionally published book, do a self-published book, and then put out content on the internet with the sole idea of helping people, with a link in your bio that says, look, if I've helped you and you want to buy my book, here's my book. And then just see what happens. And you'd be surprised how many people will buy someone's book and never read it. They only bought it because they felt almost guilty it just seems a little backwards as a marketer. I try not to be a cynical marketer, but to give so much that people feel so indebted to you that they are going to go out and buy your book. Hey, that's a way of acquiring customers, but I consider it a very like ethical, above board way that I think people are often overlooking.
Yeah, I think you're right. And in fact, I know you're right. People, and I'll speak at a whatever, and people will, they want to take home a memento, and if it's the book, they'll take it, or whatever the case might be. And I think you have to be mindful that you've made an impact and people want to have that sense of connection with you. And, I'm grateful for that. And I think that that's one of the reasons when you get down to pricing book, this particular book, my next one, there was a lot of, all the publishers were $32, $33. They said, this book is a $32, $33 book. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And one of the things, if you're writing a book, make sure you negotiate what the pricing is going to be, what the cover is going to look like, in other words, be in control of your content and your positioning. And I said, no. And they said, well, we'll acquiesce and go down to 29. I said, the only way you get this is got to be $26.99. They were like, why? I said, because if somebody buys 1,000 books from a book wholesaler, they can buy 1,000 books at $15 a pop, and we'll get a lot more density. Well, guess what? We've got thousands of bulk orders on this book. And the question is why? Because a guy can write a check, a gal can write a check and buy 100 books for $1,500 instead of let's say $3,200. So
Sure.
that's why you do it. And people say, yeah, but you don't make much money. Well, that's not really, if you're writing a book to make money on the book sales, it's a long way to payday. It might be useful at Chick-fil-A or McDonald's on an occasional lunch. The real reason you're right is to give away the information, to broaden your marketing base, and to influence the lives of people. Now, some people are going to say, well, yeah, that's great, Richard, but I can't write a book, and it's great you and Chris do. Well, you can start simply with a tip that you post every week or every 2 weeks that you can put online where you can, as an example, you go to my website, Richard Weylman, WEYLMAN.com, Richard Weylman, and you'll see down at the bottom of the homepage, you can enroll in the performance tip. Well, 48,000 people get that about every 10 days. All right. And I started writing those before I really got into the books, if you will. But what you do is you're still what? To your point, Chris, you're sharing information out there and broadening your base. And so somebody gets it, they forward it to somebody else and forward it to somebody else. And all of a sudden you go from 3,000 people to 8 to 20 to 40. And it's the time involved. It takes time to do that, but you're still putting the information out there. And that's what people are looking for. They're looking for a source. And if you've gone to my website, as you know, Chris, if you look under resource, I don't even know anymore. I think I got about at least 30 2-minute videos up there with tips you can use to grow your business. It's free. Just go and use. And I got an email the other day from a guy and so-called guru. Well, it's really unfortunate you give all this information away. Well, okay, but I'm good. I don't need to collect $5 to pass go here. We're good.
I've seen people. That's a very unfortunate mentality
Yeah.
to think like if your business. I've told this to people. If your business is based on a secret of people not figuring this out, then I don't know how you sleep at night because eventually people are going to figure it out, whatever it is. But there's no secret information. I give away everything that's in my book for free online. Anybody that asks, like if someone wants a one-on-one consultation, it's like I almost get apprehensive sometimes. I'm like, we can, but every single thing we're going to talk about on this call, I have already talked about for free at length, and I understand it more now. Where like I used to have more of that attitude. Now I'm like I realize they need me to help them curate. They need me to help them kind of identify exactly where they are and where they want to go, and they need that kind of one-on-one. So to me, that's a curation solution is what they need. They need help going through the mountains of content, and they need help like what exactly do I need, and they want to pay me to do it, or they want to pay someone else to do it. But there's absolutely no secrets in this to say like, oh, like you shouldn't tell people how to sell more books. Like, why wouldn't I? Like that's that's crazy. The one secret, and I don't keep it a secret, but I tell them it's my secret, is to write your book whatever book somebody's writing, write it in a way that you can benefit even if you give it away. So that's having links to your social media following, links to your online communities, incentives to join your email list, whatever it is. So especially if you just give away the PDF or the Kindle version, you run a price promo, different things, you don't worry about that. Just give it away. If people get some kind of benefit, they're going to find you. If they want more information, they're going to find you, and they're going to recommend you to other people. They're going to buy your book, and they're going to take a picture of it, and they're going to hashtag your name and your website, like stuff you can't buy. You couldn't go up and buy that from somebody, but they'll do it for free if you over deliver, if you just give without expectations. And then you can just kind of let the chips like fall where they're going to fall, instead of how many people tweeted about us after the, like, who cares? Is it more than zero? Good. Like that's all we need to know.
It's like when I wrote this last one, I told the publisher I'm going to give away chapter 1, and they were fine with it. But several people said, "Well, you don't have to give away a whole chapter. I mean, you can just give excerpts." And
A
I'm like,
half chapter,
yeah.
come on.
But I give away a whole chapter, and people register to get it. They download it, they read it, and guess what they do? They order. Because in the PDF they get right at the bottom, it said, if you enjoy this, click here, and it takes them. Now, I'll give you another tip. This is really important inside baseball for all the authors out there. If you're going to promote your book and you're hopeful that bookstores are going to carry it, make really sure you just don't direct people to Amazon. Because what bookstores do is they audit your deliverable, meaning the website or whatever. And if you're sending everybody to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Igloo, other are not going to stock your book. A lot of people don't understand why their books don't get in bookstores. And when you go on their website, because it gets directed right to Amazon. If you go to my website, richardweylman.com, WEYLMAN.com, click on Learn More, it takes you to a book page where you can download a chapter, you can get some of the feedback. But then it lists these fine retailers. And I have the actual links to Barnes & Noble and all these other bookstores right there. Amazon is there too. But the point is, when I got audited, they loved it. So just don't expect a bookstore to carry you. If all you can say, yeah, but it's easy to send them to Amazon. It's not what's easy for you. You have to give the consumer choice, because a lot of people that read books, from my experience, are real advocates for bookstores. So that becomes just an additional way of saying, I value you as a reader.
It'd almost be fun to do marketing campaigns to get people into bookstores based specifically on that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Barnes & Noble, look, we know, which is why we don't do it this way.
Well,
it kind of sounds.
They'd loved it so much they've invited me to come to some of their biggest stores and do book signings for being an advocate.
For doing one little thing that honestly makes sense. Like, I don't care where people buy my books. Like, I don't care. Like, really. Yeah, I do see a lot of authors, they send people straight to Amazon. And I get it. They get really excited, especially if they're a first-time author. They're self-published. They're like, I'm on Amazon. I put my Amazon link in my bio. I'm going to tell everybody to go to Amazon, go to Amazon, go to Amazon. And I always tell them, like, look, Amazon is the black hole of marketing. Once they get to Amazon, you don't know if they actually bought it. You can't track them. You can't retarget them. You can't pixel them. All the marketing stuff. Where I've frequently suggested to people, send them to a landing page. I know you're doing this with your website. Like, I signed up for your, I put my email in. I was like, okay, want to make sure everything's working over here. Get their email if you can before sending them to Amazon. So say, look, hey, come to my website. Give me your email. I will give you a special 3-video series. I'll give you a special bonus chapter. I'll give you free access to my community. Get their email address, instant redirect, can go to Amazon if that's what you want, or have it go to a page that has all the different places where you can buy it if you want. But do what you can to collect that email address before they get there, so that you can follow up with them with some other, not necessarily just for the offers, but to say, look, I've got more information. If you're looking for this is the problem that you have. I've already made a video about it. Here it is. And that's where you have the kind of a longer term value from somebody other than just they bought your book. They didn't know why, but it was cheap and they saw it on Instagram, versus you're actually building a customer list.
You're exactly right. And you want to capture their names. And another thing, if you go to my website, you'll see at the top 7 easy and elegant ways to turn strangers into clients. That's called a lead magnet. I mean, I get a couple of hundred people a month that download that. And people say, well, yeah, but don't you charge it? Again,
they're not thinking.
Yeah, why would I charge them?
Because it's like charging somebody to become a customer.
Right. I mean, well, you mentioned very early on, very few people ever use the phrase lifetime value. I mean, good God, once I got them, it's the lifetime value of that individual. They may never buy, they might not do consulting or speaking, whatever, but I know with 48,000 people getting a regular communication about every 10 days or 2 weeks from me, that the top of my pipe is constantly full of people coming in that want some service of some kind. We'll just say
Yeah.
it that way.
And then when you have a new book that launches, you can say, hey, everybody, my book is here. You get the sales instead of, I see so many people who they publish a book, and especially in the self-publishing space. And once it's published, they're like, hey, now what do I do?
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh. Like now the real work starts. I'm on a 99-1 where I say 1% is having a good product. So not necessarily a book, it could be a different product, but it does have to be good. And
Yeah.
then it's 99% getting people to know about it and care about it enough that they're going to give you their money. Because just existing doesn't matter. Like your book could be the best, but if it just exists, I mean, I think 10,000 books get published every day. Like it's an insane amount. So for the fact that someone buys your book or my book, like it's an honor almost because they have choices of what to buy. They could buy any other book and they buy our book. Well, that's because we've done something ahead of time. They're not just stumbling onto it and being like, oh, I guess I'll buy this one. No, they probably have some kind of contact with the author ahead of time. They've seen their social media. It's got an irresistible type offer. It's got some kind of bonus. There's some kind of incentive. There's a reason to buy it, not just because it exists. Um, and I hope that more marketers kind of think of it that way, because there are so many things that you can do as a marketer once you have a book, right? Like a
Absolutely.
free plus shipping offer, sample chapters, digital bonuses, like so many ways, and you're already elevated. And so that's one question. We're coming up here at the end. Like, how have you experienced like the benefit of, or how would you describe, published author status? And have you do you feel like you've benefited from a little bit of an elevated status simply because you published a book?
Yeah, and I'll give you sort of the CEO view of what people have told me. When I'll ask them, why did you reach out or whatever, they say, we're looking for a thought leader, and I read your book. And we could just stop there. But I'll give you a good example. Freddie Steakburger and Custard, the COO, read my book, The Power of Why Breaking Out, reached out to me. Long story short, ended up being a client. We did a whole process for them on the Freddie's way of doing business at all of their stores, et cetera, consulting project. They just won the National Restaurant Award for Best Fast Casual in the United States. They beat everybody, Smashburger, Culver's, et cetera. So that would have never happened except that he read the book. When the Minnesota Vikings built their stadium, the COO read my book, picked up the phone, called me. We helped them elevate the experience of the fan in that stadium by doing a stadium audit like we do. A lot of companies have me come in, look at the space. We have clients come in. What would you change? So what the book does for you in the big world is it helps position you as someone. Now, this is critical, Chris, that has deep vertical knowledge on a topic. It's people today hire people that have deep vertical knowledge on a topic, not just everything, a little thing about a lot of things, although that's good. It's that deep vertical knowledge on a particular topic or topic areas, in my case. That's what drives it. And that's what a book will do for you. What it says to the world out there is this individual has deep knowledge on this particular, we'll say, subject matter. And as a result of that, you immediately set yourself apart from, let's say, anybody else out there who says, yeah, I'm really good at change management. Oh, really? Well, this guy wrote a book on change management. What book did you write? None. Well, let me read his book and I'll get back to you, which is the same as I'm never going to talk to you again.
Yep.
So that's what a book is. Now, if you write a book for that reason, that's your decision. But if you do that, you tend to write it like a book, like a sales proposal. Just share the information so you're writing to people as individuals. And what will happen is when individuals get that, they'll say, this makes so much sense. We ought to bring this into our organization. If you write it from the organizational perspective, then they're like, yeah, I don't know how we can implement that. Thank you.
I like that. That's it's a great way to explain like the importance and the power of having a book when you have a level of expertise. Like whether you want to write a book or not, kind of acknowledging the role that books play in
Right.
society today. It's just the way that it is. It's understanding the rules of the game and then playing the game. And you can differentiate yourself. You can separate yourself to where like, yes, yeah, but there's a whole phrase. Well, this guy wrote the book on it, right? To where like this guy must be an expert because he's written the book. Now, of course, I always tell people you have to actually write good books. You can't just write
Yeah.
a book that technically exists. Has to be good.
Yep.
But when you do that, oh my gosh, I mean, because you could find, and we'll end on this. Like if once you have your book, if you know, hey, the Vikings making their new stadium, we need to get in front of them. You can send your book. You can find who you need to send your book to and send it to them for a very low cost. And one thing that Nick and I are trying to make some content around is the fact that Amazon packages have a 100% open rate. 100%. Forget email. If you send somebody an Amazon package with your book in it, it's going to get opened.
Right.
And for sometimes $10, $20, $30, you can get that book into somebody's hands for that price. Someone at a C level that you're trying to connect with. It's kind of gets interesting from a marketer standpoint of like, all right, what's our marketing budget? How many books can we send out? All right, let's make a list. Who do we want to send these books to? Oh, did my camera just glitch?
Yeah, but you got to go the extra step. And that when I'm in Dallas, there's a CEO that I want to reach. So what am I going to do? Well, they don't have a company number. It's an 800 number. So what am I going to do? I'm going to Uber over to his office, step in. Here's a book for you. Thank you very much. Even if he's not there, it's a win. You got it. All right, Kyle McDowell has just joined us, so we want to say hi, Kyle. It's Richard Weylman here, and Chris is in Massachusetts, and he's frozen there because it's so cold, but it's all good. Hey, Chris, I know you are. Chris, it was great to speak with you, and I hope this was helpful, brother. Make sure you do that to me. Send me when you post it, when you get ready to put it up, send me the link because I send it out to 48,000 people. So hopefully we'll get you more subscribers. Fair enough? Oh, I want to. All right, say hi to Nick if you talk to him. Appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Authorpreneur Podcast. If you'd like more information about this episode's guest, you can find links to their books, websites, and social media profiles in the show notes and video description. If you're an author or business owner who's interested in learning more about how you can use books and published author status to market and grow your business or personal brand, or if you're an aspiring author looking for more information about the publishing process, you can find more information and request an author audit at authorpreneur.com. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, or if you'd like to recommend someone, please reach out via email to chris@authorpreneur.com. Remember, a book is just a book, but when it's your book, it's an asset. #Authorpreneur.